Our nuclear revenge. First of two stories. Why we don't see Uncle Mark anymore. So this was told to me by my dad over a drink recently. He'd gotten a little drunk and ended up admitting it to me, said it's been too long now and he'd paid the consequences, so there was nothing to come back on him. Only reason I'm posting this. Uncle Mark was my favorite uncle when I was a child. He always invited me around to show me his airsoft gun collection, hide and seek parties with my friends, and even took us to the beach. He would always come with sweets for us and acted like one of us, another child who just wanted to have fun. But then, the day I, 7 years old, was meant to be going around because we were going for a ride to this amazing place. My dad was happy and cheerful for the entire day. He was going on about how much he loved the fact his brother wanted to be in his children's life, until he got a call. I was in my room, packing my stuff, when I heard the most blood-curdling scream from my dad. He was screaming and raging. I heard him rip open our front door and slam it back shut with enough force to make the picture next to it fall off the wall. I didn't see my dad for a long while after that, and he never told me why until we had this talk, but that shall be explained at the end. Mum had a lot of money saved up from a minor lotto win, so we were okay, and she always smiled and said Daddy is just away for a little while because he was looking after me and my siblings whenever I asked where he was. Uncle Mark didn't come around either during this time, but we did see him in town a couple times. Funnily enough, he ran away the moment my mum saw me waving at him. 9 months later, Dad came home and I excitedly ran and hugged him. He hugged me right on back with a good squeeze. We had a party to celebrate him coming home. We had party food and cake and all the usual stuff. I was just happy my dad was home though. A week or so later, Dad sat me down with the other children and explained that Uncle Mark wouldn't be coming around anymore. When asked why, he just said Uncle Mark was a bad person and that if he ever tried to talk to us, we were to ignore him and come find one of them. We all agreed because my dad always knew best after all. One day, a year or so later, 9 at this point, I'm coming out of school to wait for my parents to pick me up. My other siblings were either at secondary school or too young for school, so it was just me. I see Uncle Mark stood there with a big grin. I get nervous when he comes up to me, saying he's here to take me for a ride. I tell him I'm not supposed to talk to him, that he's a bad person like my dad said. Uncle Mark got this scary look on his face for a second, then told me it was all good and his parents had changed their mind and made to take my hand. That's when I saw my dad just appear. My dad punched Uncle Mark right in the face and little old me saw blood fly as Uncle Mark went sprawling. I didn't see much after that except Uncle Mark running away with my dad chasing him. He came back after a little while, sighed and took me in a hug. He told my mum to take me home and that he'd see us later. I don't know why, but I knew there and then it would be a long time before I ever saw my dad again. And I was right. 5 years. 5 years my dad was gone. My mum eventually admitted to us that he was in prison for protecting us, and we all guessed he'd done something to Uncle Mark. And he had. Turns out Uncle Mark liked kids. He liked them a lot. And that day I was meant to go to his house. My aunt, Uncle Mark's wife, had called my dad and told him she'd found some pictures under her and Mark's bed of children, and she was scared of what to do because Mark was a big man and it was later revealed he abused her, so she was scared to call the police on him. And my dad had gone into a rage and stormed over to his house. He'd smashed in the door to find Uncle Mark screaming at my aunt as she waved the pictures around in hysterics. My dad had beaten Uncle Mark within an inch of his life, Uncle Mark screaming he'd make him pay as the police had arrested my dad. Messed up thing was, by the time my dad had explained why he had done it, Mark managed to get the pictures, burned them and scared his wife into saying nothing, so there was no evidence. My dad was sent down for assault but made sure my other uncles and older cousins were around to protect us in case Mark came back. But oh no. Mark waited until my dad thought we were safe. And then, according to my dad, had come to kidnap me from the school right under their noses. Who would stop him? People didn't believe my dad when he explained Mark was a predator. They thought he was just excusing himself for attacking him. After all, the police hadn't found anything and his wife said my dad was a liar, whereas my dad was the big angry guy with a few assaults under his belt already. So all they saw was my nice uncle here to pick me up. He had gotten away from my dad at the school. My dad had tripped and it gave him the chance to run. But my dad knew where he would go. Knew Uncle Mark would run home to hide and more than likely destroy any evidence he had gotten since destroying the last lot. He also knew the police would be on his tail for the attack on the school, so he didn't have long. Difference was, though, my dad had his car while Uncle Mark was on foot. So he drove over and demanded to know if my aunt was going to lie again after what Uncle Mark had just tried to pull. Now, I don't like my aunt much after what she pulled the first time, but I think in that moment she really realized what a monster my uncle was. He was willing to do this to her nephew just for pathetic revenge for being called out as a predator. She said she wouldn't stop my dad or save Mark this time. My dad ordered her to get all the evidence she could as he waited for Mark to appear. She came back down with pictures. Lots of pictures. He then told her to go, wait 1 hour and then call the police. He was ending this. And as Uncle Mark appeared, my dad, who had been waiting behind the wall of his garden, slammed him through the door of his house. And then proceeded to beat him to death in his doorway. He apparently towards the end couldn't see the floor through the blood. My dad was arrested on murder and did so without resistance, only saying he wished they'd done his job for him. But when it was revealed that Uncle Mark was indeed a predator who had attempted to kidnap me, and the fact that they had to face the fact they had allowed a predator to run free, he was instead charged for manslaughter, his lawyer stating my father had gone into a protective rage and had only intended to render him harmless. Funnily enough, no one argued in defense of the predator for my dad getting the murder charges. He said he didn't regret it, but that he wished he had done something else purely so that he didn't miss out on so much of my life. I told him I was forever going to be proud of him for that, and that I loved him. I was a bit shocked I wasn't told just what Uncle Mark was for so long. But my dad asked if it would have made it any better to be told as a child what he really was, or now as a man who can handle the truth, and he was right. Me as a child would not have been able to mentally handle it. I'm barely able to handle it now. TLDR, my uncle was a predator. Dad found out and beat the stuffing out of him. Uncle tried to kidnap me in revenge and ended up dead. Before we get to the second story, please press the red subscribe button below if you're enjoying this so far. Ruined a marriage and my family for revenge, sorry not sorry. So I recently discovered this sub and had a personal story to share. On mobile, so forgive formatting, grammar etc. Story is several years old. I've always been the black sheep of the family. Cousins grew up to be doctors, professors, creatives and whatever else. Meanwhile, I've managed to just make a humble stable passive income through some business decisions. Nothing fancy, but I can afford a 1-bedroom in Nick and live comfortably with that and a part-time job in a cafe. Everyone in the family including my own parents judge me harshly for not pushing myself to do what my cousins do, especially my one cousin we will call Randy. Think the stereotypical dude bro who got rich thanks to working for his dad. Multiply that by 10 and you got Randy. Anyway, he always gave me the most shit, and eventually I just tuned them out cause I get to enjoy my life with my work part-time and still afford what I want. So, to cut the bullshit short, Randy has a wife and 2 kids. He also had a mistress. I found this out cause one day when I was walking through the city when I saw him walking down the street with a woman who clearly wasn't his wife, arms around each other. I checked Facebook and saw he had indeed posted about visiting a bagel shop in the city while on a business trip that morning, so we had indeed in the city. So, I decided fuck it, let me see how this plays out. I followed them for 5 hours, snapped several photos, one of them going into a hotel together. I held onto these and waited until Christmas that year. About 6 months later, I decided to unceremoniously drop printed photos in front of everyone at the table before dinner and made sure to get his wife to see them. Cue screaming and fighting. I actually got a black eye out of it. It was Randy's dad who did it though, not him. Cue police. A lot of questioning. My and I get kicked out. We head back home after talking to the cops one last time. The aftermath. Besides Randy's wife and another cousin who hates Randy, my family cut me off entirely for several years. Whatever, even my parents had always expressed disappointment in me for not applying myself fully, so no real loss there. Randy got divorced. Lost full custody of the kids after threatening his ex. family occasionally tries to guilt me into apologizing, but my response is some variation of not gonna apologize for outing a cheating cunt, and I'm promptly blocked for another few months. So and Randy's ex-wife are good friends and the kids call me uncle. Nick having a family who actually loves me unconditionally for once. So and I got married, and that's when my family last tried to get into contact with me and were actually nice for once. Seeing me moving on, I guess eats at them IDK. Maybe realizing their punching bag is gone for good. That's it really. Living my best life now with a good family as opposed to a shit one. Edit. First, thanks for support and awards. Second, a bunch of you all seem to think being abused is not traumatic or bad, as several comments seem to be saying wow, you're a bad person for having a negative reaction to abuse and not handling it like a golden human being. So I'll clarify. The comments about my wasted potential weren't just oh your cousin's a doctor, what about you? They were I can't believe Randy just sealed a deal for X amount of dollars. Are you still working at that shitty cafe? Are you still saying what's her name? The girl with the pudgy stomach? Aren't you ever gonna do anything with your life? I'd feel so worthless living like that. Those are the nicer ones. The worst ones include being told that it's better I didn't try as I wouldn't amount to anything and other such things along those lines, as I really don't care to remember the more toxic lines. I'm not interested in judgment. Go post on ATA threads if you want to say your piece about that, but don't fucking tell me that I wasn't an abuse victim and wasn't treated horribly by my own family just cause I didn't spell out the nitty-gritty details. Thanks for watching. Please press the like button if you enjoyed and the notification bell next to the subscribe button to never miss another video. Let me know your thoughts below. Bye.